In my dreams. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Da-da-da-da-da. Hey, Cass, stop singing the raspberries and make with the album review. Album review. Oh, yeah. By the way, it's the Cranberries, but yes, Playboi Carti. Music. Hello one, hello all, it's the most dreams ghost of them all, Casper in the flesh, and it's time for a review of Playboi Carti Music. This is the most anticipated album from rapper, singer, Playboi Carti, who has been very influential in his runtime, in his time in the game, which is odd to say because he does feel very new, but yet his style has been very, I would say, influential, even if it's not influential in a way that I really care for. However, I will say the shining light of his influence is without a doubt Yeet with 2093, and I would honestly say showed more promise than any other middle-of-the-road, monotone, drugged-out sounding rapper, any comatose sounding rapper like, let's say, Destroy Lonely. And with the impact of his last album, Whole Lotta Red, which was an album I didn't necessarily care for as a whole, but I did, however, enjoy some highlights off it, as he was going more in a vamp direction. Definitely an aesthetic change from his more baby voice, infantile vocal style on Die Lit, which I think is a really good album. Definitely one of the best trap albums of all time, and honestly the best in his discography, and really showed improvement from his mixtape days. But with that album, I felt like it had more potential. It really should have had more punch to it, definitely more density to it, as there were some tracks that were just very unlistenable and just loud, and not loud in a good way, just really distorted production, but very flat, and definitely took over his voice, definitely suffocating the vocals there, and just honestly just leaving it lifeless. But that's not to say there weren't bangers on it, but honestly, I feel like Playboi Carti has pretty much dwindled in quality since his Die Lit days, and honestly, there were times where I never thought this album would come out because he had so many close calls, little snippets on Instagram here and there. But now he's back. He's finally released this LP, which was long awaited, delayed, and honestly, we had doubts that this thing would even exist. It's pretty much like Dre's Detox, in a way, or any other album Kanye promised that never dropped. But now we finally have this. Now this thing is in existence. And now we have this thing, which is way over an hour. We're talking an hour and 16 minutes. And with this thing being an hour and 16 minutes, unfortunately, I think we're getting really more quantity over quality here. But I will say, though, the quality tracks, I would say, are definitely an improvement over Carti's weakest moments of Whole Lotta Red. Because I will say that the distorted moments here, the loud moments, are actually loud. They're actually crushing. And I really do feel there's more dynamics this time around, and vocally I think gives Playboi Carti a better chance to shine here in opposed to the last project. And where he's shining vocally, I would say a prime example of that would be the opener, Pop Out, Pop Out, where Carti sounds straight up terrifying here, absolutely madman possessed with very outlandish lyrics over booming bass, blaring keys, over these very distorted, grimy hi-hats. And the whole thing transitions fantastically into Crush. And you can make the argument that it does serve more as an intro or an interlude, sure. But man, the skittering hi-hats, the colossal booming bass, and this thing is accompanied with some video game 8-bit battle-ready keys, with this epic wall of analog synth bass along with these skittering drums, and crunchy guitar bits that sound so epic with this huge choral choir that sounds very soulful, very ascending. And these choir vocals work very well in tandem with Playboi Carti's baby vocals. Like, the whole thing reminds me of Kanye meets Travis Scott. And as far as features go, there are a handful of reoccurring features here. But as I alluded to, I think most of the standout tracks for me are easily more of the louder ones, more of the noisier ones. Because on the noisier ones, not only are they crushing, but also Carti sounds more diabolical here, more straight up evil. And I would say he sounds more maniacal on the song Crank, where his vocals share a balance of lows and highs. And as he's doing these vocals, there's something very unorthodox here, very unkempt, kind of reminding me of like an ODB, a Lil B. Like, the vocal inflections really do dip into oddball territory. And topically, I think the direction is pretty strong, and I do love the exchange of highs and lows in the production. And there's also Cocaine Nose, that has these sped up, super dark, bold guitar riffs that are accompanied by this bass that is just absolutely roaring, which honestly comes from the sample of the track Ashante's Only You, but the way it's just turned into this absolutely sinister trap rock track is just amazing to me. And not to mention how much in demon mode Playboi Carti sounds here. Like, with the rasp in his voice, the cracks in his inflection. He just sounds so evil to me, along with these warbles in his voice, with the auto-tune on the hook. Like, the whole thing is just one dark banger. And we get more distortion with the fuzzy chords and blaring bass on Olympian that has this arpeggiated riff along with these bright keys that are dancing on top of these droning organ chords. And I feel this creates a great contrast with how infantile his inflection sounds here. And it's almost a callback to his Die Lit era. And I will admit, there are some tracks here that are brighter, but also find a fitting to this record. I do think there is balance here where he could bring something brighter, more upbeat, but it's not going to stick out like a sore fucking thumb. Because with Playboi Carti, dynamics is definitely the key. And there's HBA, which has these weeping keys, stabbing dynamic kicks, stabbing dramatic strings, crispy kicks and hi-hats. But what stands out to me is the lyrical direction Carti's going here, the more biographical direction he's going. It's certainly more confessional, it's certainly more personal. While he's speaking on the loss of people that were close to him, his kids, reminiscing on the birth of them. And I feel like this is probably the most sobering track Playboi Carti has laid down yet. But I will say here, there are tracks that have nice transitions, even if the transition into the next track doesn't exactly pay off or pan out in a satisfying way. Because I do feel like when it comes to the features, the feature portion of this album, it kind of sounds like it's not really a Playboi Carti track, but a leftover of the featured artist that is featured onto the track. Like, if I could break that down further, like, it definitely sounds rushed. It definitely sounds like what was on the cutting room floor of the album process of the featured artists, where it's like, oh yeah, we don't really need that track, let's just put it on your album. And that just leads it to be underwhelming, sounding very unfinished. And there are tracks here that do sound kind of unfinished. And after listen, I did find this album a chore to listen to, unfortunately. Because while you do find tracks that are bangers, you definitely do have a duration of very mid to trash tracks to get through before you get to the next banger. Not only that, but some of the features don't even make sense. And in terms of features that make no sense, I have to touch on the Kendrick Lamar features, the numerous Kendrick Lamar features here, where aesthetically, topically, in terms of substance, in terms of consistency and morality, which Kendrick stands on. He's been standing on business for a long time, as he's gone at Drake for being a deadbeat dad, for being a PDF downloader. And I'm not saying that Carti is that, but this man has allegations, damning evidence of him being an abuser, of attacking his pregnant girlfriend. And not only that, but Iggy Azalea going at him for not paying his child support, for being a deadbeat dad. And then unironically, no substance whatsoever, no context whatsoever, teaming up with Playboi Carti, to me, doesn't really make too much sense. And this isn't a fuck Kendrick moment. This isn't a Kendrick is trash moment. It's just me criticizing him for teaming up with someone as problematic as Playboi Carti. I really don't see the growth here. I don't see the call out. I don't see the meaning. It just comes off really weird to me, honestly. But aside from that, I really don't think their chemistry is as strong as I mentioned before. I don't think it's as strong as it was with Baby Keem. And I don't really think Kendrick's really adding anything to these features here. And there's also moments here where Playboi Carti is way into his copy bag, way into his influence bag, as he ends up just sounding like a carbon copy of other artists here. Like, you can't tell me there aren't moments here where he sounds like Future, where he sounds like a monotone ChatGPT Future. And he especially comes off as Future if he tapped it in, and he especially comes off as a Future copy, as a Future clone, on the song Toxic, where he sounds like a comatose Future, on the track Charge Them Hoes a Fee. And Future is actually featured on that song, and honestly not adding anything to it at all. Like, the track is so stagnant, it's so boring, it's so underwhelming, and the most unnecessary pauses here. Like, everyone just sounds so asleep at the wheel. And one thing that I could say that I could give this credit for, there is somewhat an aesthetic to this record. I do feel there are moments here where I'm listening to a mixtape as opposed to an album, where this thing can sound all over the place, can sound very spontaneous like a mixtape does, where you're just hearing these random gunshots, these DJs shouting over these tracks. And not to mention the spooky synth horns that show up on this track that is very reminiscent of the 2000s. And with this album being as long as it is, with the anticipation being as long as it was, with the constant delays, would I say this is worth the wait in its entirety? Not exactly. I mean, it's not a total dud. There are some tracks here that I do find enjoyable, but again, the amount of, and there are some tracks here that I find enjoyable. It's not a total dud, but there's so much wait time between a banger and a bunch of mid to trash to just absolutely underwhelming and disappointing tracks. Like, honestly, this thing could have been released in another year once it's more constructed, more robust, once you've cut the fat, and maybe add some tracks that actually bang, actually do live up to the potential that the bangers on here have. Because there's just way too much gaps in quality. And honestly, I think this thing should have been whittled down to at least 10 tracks. And if it was whittled down to 10 tracks, it wouldn't be bogged down and bloated. It wouldn't be such a bloated mess. Because honestly, I'm just finding myself on the fence with this. Like, did I enjoy some tracks more than a whole lot of Red? Sure. Do I think some ideas were executed better than a whole lot of Red? Sure. But man, I should not have to have 30 tracks in front of me and only have like a few I could count on my hand that I could say are bangers or highlights. Like, if you're coming with 30 tracks, you should at least have 15 tracks, maybe 10 tracks as bangers. But no, this is under 10 tracks of enjoyment for me. Like, but I will say, were there a variety of vocal inflections? Yes. Production highlights? Sure. Hooks that bang? Sure. But those minimal amounts of times don't add up to a great album. I'm sorry. And I know the Playboi Carti fans are gonna hate me. The Opium fans are gonna hate me. But that's okay. It's okay. And even though some ideas were executed better on this album than Whole Lotta Red, do I like this better than Whole Lotta Red? No. Better than Dial It? Absolutely not. But honestly, I would say it's a very average, okay record. It's middle of the road for me. I'm on the fence with this thing, which is why I'm going to give this thing 2.5 out of 5 black hearts on this. But if you've given this a listen, what did you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? And that's it. Caspa, Gothic Ghost, Playboi Carti, music. Till we meet again.